Suppose I walk into a classroom and ask students, what is the definition of solid that they have learnt in primary school?
In primary school.
In primary school. What's the distinction between solid and liquid?
Okay.
Right.
So a solid is an object which has its own shape.
Solid has its own shape
and volume.
and volume. And liquid?
Liquid is something which takes the shape of the container.
Doesn't have its own shape.
Doesn't have its own shape, but has its own volume.
Okay, so this is what students give me.
Yeah.
They know what solid is. They have experienced a solid.
Yeah.
Now I'm simply asking for a definition.
Yeah.
Right? Now I say, okay, this is solid because it has its own shape.
Yeah.
I put it in a glass, it will still retain its shape.
Yeah.
So this is solid. A grain of wheat is solid. No matter where you put it, it has its own shape.
Yeah.
But if it has a handful of wheat, if I put it in one glass,
You know,
it will take the shape of that glass. In a cup, it will take the shape of the cup.
And if I put it on the ground, it'll spread out.
Right.
And
So that means, according to the definition,
handful of wheat is
should
liquid.
be liquid.
Okay.
Right? Which is
Interesting.
not something that students want to accept. They
Yeah.
want to insist that handful of wheat is also solid.
Yeah.
There is a problem, there is a conflict between the definition, what the definition implies, and what they want to.
What the intuition.
That's right. Or their judgment
That
that it is solid. Likewise, if you take a long thread, sewing thread, put it in a glass, it takes the shape of the glass.
Yeah.
So they'll have to conclude that sewing thread is also liquid.
Yeah.
Again, there's a conflict.
Yeah.
A soap bubble is a sphere. It has its own shape, no matter where you.
Unless you burst it, you put it anywhere
That's
and
it.
keeps its
Then
shape.
it's, yeah. Then it's not a bubble.
There's not a bubble there.
If it is a bubble, then it's a solid.
Yeah.
Again, not something that anybody would want to say.
Yeah.
So there is a logical contradiction between the definition
And
the logical consequence of the definition and the judgment.
Yeah.
And this is a very important tool of, in
Yeah.
fact, not simply conceptual inquiry, all forms of inquiry.
Yeah. So, but if we have this definition, we have to take this judgment.
Right. And that means you have to abandon the judgment,
Yeah.
or we keep the judgment
And then we take
and
the
abandon the definition.
We can't abandon this without abandoning.
That's right. Yeah. So students typically choose to retain this
Yeah. In this case.
and abandon that.
Yeah.
The next question will be, okay, in that case, how will you define solid? That's not an easy question because of the following problem. There are two notions of solid. One is an experiential notion.
Yeah.
Like a 5-year-old kid who has not gone to school knows what a solid is.
Yeah.
Right? So for example, this is solid.
Yeah. I can push against it and it won't go.
That's
I
right.
can stand on the ground.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you have a frozen lake, when you look at it, you may not realize it is frozen. But if
when
you walk on
stand
it,
on it, you know that it is.
then you know. So liquid, the shape is the same. It's flat. So what matters here is the experience of the body.
Yeah. When you
But the definition doesn't.
mention anything but the
Yeah, it's
body.
only shape,
Yeah.
which is why it is wrong. So the experiential notion of solid has to do with the tactile experience.
Yeah.
And then students can look for a definition for that. I don't want to go into how it can be done. Then there's a theoretical notion of solid, which involves molecules.
Yeah. I remember learning about that.
Yeah.
But
You can have an experiential definition of solid or a theoretical definition.
okay.
It is up to them to decide which they want to go.
For primary school kids, I don't think molecules. And
No, they haven't even heard about molecules, so
Yeah.
they shouldn't get into that.
Yeah.
So that's an example of sort of beginning of conceptual inquiry.